In the world of coin collecting, few stories capture the imagination quite like the mysterious and rare 1966-era Washington quarter dollar. Imagine holding a coin that was meant to be nothing more than pocket change, worth 25 cents, and realizing that this tiny piece of history could instead be worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars today, that make collectors' hearts race and turn everyday people into lucky discoverers of life-changing fortune. And in this video, we're going to explore the secrets, the history, and the unbelievable values that make this coin one of the most fascinating collectibles in American numismatic history. So stay with me until the very end, because the more shocking the values get, and you'll want to know every last detail. Let's start with the story behind the 1966 Washington quarter. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary coin. George Washington's portrait on the obverse, the eagle on the reverse. Minted in the millions as part of America's circulating currency. But 1966 wasn't an ordinary year in American coinage history. Just 1 year before, in 1965, the U.S. Mint made a dramatic change that would affect every coin collector forever. Silver was officially removed from the quarter. For decades before, Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver, but by 1965 the rising price of silver made it impossible for the mint to keep producing coins at such a loss. So the government switched the composition to a copper-nickel-clad coin, essentially a sandwich of copper and nickel that we still use today. The 1966 Washington quarter dollar was only the second full year of this new clad design. But it wasn't just a change in composition. It also opened the door to strange minting mistakes, rare transitional strikes, and unusual experimental coins that we now call the 1966-era Washington quarter dollar. Now, let's set the stage. The mint was under pressure in 1965 and 1966 because of a massive nationwide coin shortage. Millions of coins had to be produced quickly, and quality control wasn't always perfect. Errors slipped through double strikes, clipped planchets, off-center strikes, and even coins struck on the wrong metal planchets. For coin collectors today, these errors are a gold mine because they turn an ordinary 25-cent coin into a rare collectible that can be worth thousands of dollars. One of the most famous and valuable of all is a 1966-era Washington quarter dollar struck on a silver planchet. Remember, by law, silver quarters were no longer supposed to be made after 1964. But during the transition, leftover silver planchets sometimes accidentally got fed into the presses in 1965 and 1966. That means some 1966 quarters exist in pure silver when they should have been copper-nickel clad. Finding one of these is like striking oil in your backyard. It's unexpected, it's historic, and it's incredibly valuable. A genuine 1966 Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet has sold for tens of thousands of dollars at auction, and experts believe only a handful exist. That alone would make it a legendary coin, but the story doesn't stop there. Another type of 1966-era Washington quarter dollar that collectors go crazy for is the off-center strike. In these coins, the blank planchet wasn't properly seated in the coin press, so when the dies came down, only part of the design was struck. Some off-center errors are minor, with just a little bit of the design missing, but the really dramatic ones, where Washington's face is only half visible, or where the eagle looks like it's slipping off the coin, can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Imagine finding one of these in a jar of old change. What looks like a mistake to most people is a jackpot to a collector. And then there are double strikes, where the coin was struck more than once by the dice, leaving behind a ghostly second image of Washington's face or the eagle on the reverse. These kinds of errors are rare enough in any year, but for the 1966 Washington quarter dollar, they're especially desirable, because collectors know that 1965 and 1966 were chaotic years at the mint. Mistakes weren't just possible, they were inevitable. A dramatic double strike can easily bring several $1,000s at auction, and the more unusual the error, the higher the price. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping variety of the 1966-era Washington quarter dollar is the wrong planchet strike. During the mid-1960s, the mint was producing not just quarters, but also nickels, dimes, and even foreign coins at some facilities. Occasionally, a blank meant for another denomination would end up in the presses meant for quarters. That means there are examples of the 1966 Washington quarter struck on dime plankets, on nickel plankets, and even on plankets meant for coins of other nations. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors' jaws drop. A quarter struck on a dime planchet, for instance, will look smaller than it should, with part of the design missing because the blank was too small to capture it all. These spectacular errors have been known to sell for tens of thousands of dollars. And if one were ever discovered struck on an exotic foreign planchet, the value could easily skyrocket into the hundreds of thousands. Now, here's where things get even more exciting. Every time a new example of a 1966 era Washington quarter dollar comes to auction, it seems to set a new record. Collectors are passionate about these transitional and era coins because they represent moments in history when the mint itself was struggling to keep up with demand and quality control. One famous example of a 1966 Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet sold for over $12,000, and experts believe the price could be much higher today if another were to surface. Another off-center strike from the same year brought in nearly $5,000 at auction, simply because the error was so dramatic and well-preserved. These are not hypothetical values, these are real, recorded prices. $20,000 paid by collectors who understand just how rare these coins truly are. And let's take a step back and think about what this means. The 1966 Washington quarter dollar was supposed to be worth only 25 cents, nothing more than loose change you might toss in a soda machine. But thanks to the quirks of history and the unpredictable nature of minting errors, some of these coins have transformed into collectibles worth more than a new car, more than a down payment on a house, and in some cases, more than a lifetime's worth of savings. That's the thrill of coin collecting. You never know when the next treasure is going to appear. But here's the real kicker. Experts believe that many 1966-era Washington quarter dollars are still out there, undiscovered. Think about it. Millions of coins were minted, and many were tucked away in jars, drawers, and piggy banks. Families held onto them for decades, not realizing that a few of those coins could be extraordinary rarities. That means you could walk into an antique store, or go through your grandparents' coin jar, and stumble upon a 1966 Washington quarter dollar that looks a little odd. Maybe it feels lighter or heavier than it should. Maybe the edges look strange, or the design is off-center. That could be your ticket to thousands, or even millions, depending on the rarity of the error. The chance that these treasures are still hiding in plain sight is what makes this story so thrilling. The 1966 Washington quarter dollar also carries special historical significance beyond its errors. Because it was part of the first generation of non-silver quarters, it marks the end of an era in American coinage. Collectors value it not just for its mistakes, but also for what it represents: the changing economy of the 1960s, the rising cost of precious metals, and the government's decision to modernize coin production. Owning a 1966-era Washington quarter dollar is like holding a piece of that transition in your hand, a reminder of how even small changes in history can create treasures worth unimaginable amounts. And as with all collectibles, condition matters. A 1966 Washington quarter dollar with an error is valuable in any condition, but if it's well preserved, with little wear and strong detail, the price can skyrocket. Professional grading services have authenticated and graded some of these coins, and when a rare error is combined with a high grade, the result is an auction price that leaves bidders speechless. That's why collectors spend years studying, researching, and hunting these coins. It's the thrill of the chase and the reward of discovery. So let's imagine for a moment, you're holding a 1966 Washington quarter dollar. You flip it over, and something catches your eye. Maybe the strike looks strange. Maybe the coin feels heavier, almost like silver. Maybe the edge looks different, with no visible copper layer. Suddenly, you realize this isn't just any quarter. It's a 1966-era Washington quarter dollar, one of the rarest and most valuable coins of its era. In that moment, you're no longer holding 25 cents, you're holding a fortune. Collectors and experts believe that the full potential of the 1966-era Washington quarter dollar market hasn't even been realized yet. As more people discover coin collecting, as more attention is drawn to the incredible values these coins can bring, the prices are only going to rise. A coin that sells for $10,000 today could be worth $50,000 tomorrow, And who knows, maybe one day a truly unique 1966-era Washington quarter dollar will set a record by selling for millions. It's not just possible, it's likely. That's the power of rarity, history, and collector demand all coming together. The story of the 1966-era Washington quarter dollar is a reminder that treasures aren't always buried deep underground or locked away in vaults. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, in the coins jingling in your pocket or sitting in a dusty jar on a shelf. That's what makes coin collecting so exciting, and why coins like this continue to inspire awe, curiosity, and wonder. Every coin has a story, but few have a story as rich, as surprising, and as valuable as this one. So, the next time you come across a Washington quarter dollar from 1966, take a close look, examine the details, feel the weight. Listen to the sound it makes when it drops on a table. You just might be holding one of the most extraordinary coins in American history. And if you are, well, that 25 cents could change your life forever.